Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my pregnant entitled neighbor demands I switch houses with her because mine is nicer than hers and she deserves it more because she is pregnant. She ends up breaking into my home, trespassing, and I catch her in the act. Here is what happened to Karen. The title story starts like this. My neighbor has always been an entitled Karen, but things seem to have gotten worse ever since she got pregnant. She thinks that it is the responsibility of me as her neighbor and anybody else she sees to help her with the smallest and most mundane tasks. Some examples of this are putting away her groceries, cleaning her house, changing a light bulb, and even watching and feeding her other kid. Keep in mind that she is married and also is not offering to pay for people to do any of these things. With me specifically though, she keeps saying that she needs us to swap houses until she has the baby because mine will be more comfortable for her. It's a larger house with more amenities and she really thinks she has some right to have it. She went as far as telling me that if she doesn't end up with my house for the rest of her pregnancy, her child would be born with a birth defect and it would be my fault. Obviously, I told her crazy ass that I wasn't giving her my house for the rest of her pregnancy. The good news for me was that one weekend I planned to go out and see two of my friends that I hadn't seen in a while. We all lived a good drive away from each other and a weekend away from Karen bothering me was gonna be great. Or so I believed. I drove 6 hours to get to his house and when I got there, I found out that our other friend was sick and could not come at all. Disappointing, but still, I had one friend and we would have a really good time. That only lasted for a couple of hours before he got a call from work. Now he manages a team at his job and it turns out that some chaos has gone down. One of the people on his team was meant to be closing a deal on the other side of the country and flaked on the entire thing. I won't lie and pretend that I fully understood what was going on, but I just knew that he now had to leave and get on a plane to go fix things. After only a few hours, I was back in my car for the long ride back to my own house. My plans ended up being an entire bust and I was tired and grumpy. I left my house extremely early because I like traveling in the middle of the night to avoid traffic. So I'd been awake since about 2 in the morning and was now getting home at 4 in the afternoon. My back hurt, my leg hurt, and I was exhausted. I dragged myself into the house and my kitchen to make myself a much needed cup of coffee. That was when I noticed something was wrong in my backyard. I could see out the window that the pool cover was bunched up near my deck when I knew I had it covered when I left. I went outside to see what happened and found none other than Karen sitting at the edge of the pool with her feet dangling in it. It might have been the exhaustion or my anger for her building up, but I basically exploded at her. Me, what the F do you think you're doing in my pool? Karen, don't you know that water exercises are the best for when you're pregnant? It takes the strain off of the belly. Me, I don't care if it magically gives your baby superpowers. You broke into my effing house. Karen, if you were not a clueless man, you would understand that I needed it. In fact, I think that if we drain all but a little of the water, then in a few months I can have a really nice water birth out here. Me, you are not giving birth in my damn pool. I try and pull her to a standing position so I can properly kick her off my property. I had no idea that she could move as fast as she could with her big belly. She quickly waddled right into my house and up the stairs to my bedroom. I was on her tail and when I found her, she was in my bathroom, sitting at the edge of my jacuzzi. It was already set up, so she clearly had already been in my house before, which was the final straw for me. Me, that's it. I'm calling the police on your crazy ass. She heard the word police and started freaking out and throwing things at me. At first it was small things like a shampoo bottle, but then she was able to grab my towel rack and chuck it at me. How the hell was this pregnant lady so strong? It hurt too when it made contact with me and I retreated out of the bathroom to finally call the police on her. She heard me doing it and started screaming bloody murder that I was trying to kill her baby and she needed to use my things or it would come out defected. She was still going on this cycle of a rant when the police arrived and I started to explain to them what happened. They went into the bathroom to talk to Karen and see what was going on from her side of things. She actually had the balls to tell the police that I was the one that came in without permission to try and catch her undressing. I already showed the police that this was my address and they made sure to let Karen know that. She was telling them that she knew it was my address, but because she was pregnant, I allowed her to switch houses with me because she needed the pool and the jacuzzi. I told them of course that was a lie and I had come home to find her in my backyard and then she ran into the house. She clearly waited until I was going to be gone for a weekend to then break in. In fact, there was a side door with a broken lock that the police discovered, so now I knew how she actually got inside in the first place. Once she was caught, she started complaining again to the police about how I wanted her baby to have an issue. That since she was pregnant, I had to accommodate her needs and let her have my house until the baby was born. They broke it to her that I had no requirement to let her use my house and she had broken the law by breaking in. When I told them I wanted to press charges, she got even more frantic. Karen, cops, you must not know that it is illegal to arrest a pregnant lady. The handcuffs will cause distress to the baby, and sitting in a cell would cause him to have even more problems once he is born. None of you know the law. She was arrested despite her protests, and finally taken away by the police. The charges against her were trespassing, breaking and entering, assault and battery. In court she had the same excuses of being pregnant, and that meant that she was allowed to be in my house and was arrested illegally. She finally ended up behind bars, and I bet it is much less comfortable than if she had just stayed in her own house like she should have. As for me, I'm pretty happy about her being miserable and having her baby in jail after all the crap she pulled. And yeah, ripe stars, imagine if being pregnant gave you the superpower to be allowed to trespass on someone's property and not get any repercussions for it. Thank God we don't live in a society like that. Either way, if you enjoyed this story so far, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment, because that would help me tremendously in order to regain a good standing in the algorithm. Thank you so much. The next one is titled, Where Are You From? So this is a very petty revenge. To set the scene, I live in a small European country and the older generations here can sometimes be incredibly xenophobic, which I really loathe. I'm a linguist and my husband is pretty into languages as well. We like to speak different languages together for fun and practice. So about 3 years ago we were going home from an event, a theater visit I think, which had us a bit dressed up, think tux and a long dress. We were on the subway because parking in the downtown is hard, and at that time of the day it was faster than a cab when I noticed a total Karen with her husband sitting down right across from us. She immediately gave us a look, apparently disturbed by our attire. My husband kept on talking to me, and in a moment I hear then Karen go, "Can you see them? Showing off their money, effing Russians." This made no bloody sense, like what? I nudge my hubby to pay attention to them. Her husband gives a sigh and reacts, "Honey, calm down, and I don't think they're even speaking Russian." "Of course they are, listen." On cue, I switch languages and hubby follows. We end up keeping the conversation alternating all the languages we can manage. Spanish, Italian, French, German, Japanese, some Serbian, and of course English. I can see the pair listening with raising frustration, quarreling about us the whole time. After about 3 more stops, we get up and we get off the train. The Karen actually gets up and yells after us, "Where the F are you from?" We smile and wave, and my husband shouts back in our native tongue, "Locals, have a nice evening." And yeah, ripe stars, I gotta say, that is one of the things I really like about Europe. It's pretty much impossible to tell where someone is from. No matter their skin color or how they speak or whatever, they can still be locals and still speak the local language. This is obviously different here where I'm currently living in Thailand, which is a super homogeneous country where pretty much the entire country is comprised of just Thai people, or at least 90+% of it. Anyway, the next one is titled, Kids Tried to Cause a Car Accident. Let me start by saying the kids had to be in their late teens or early 20s, 2 of them had tattoos, not children but young adults that still act like kids. I, 32 female, work at a barricade company. Easiest way to describe it, I'm the one that closes down the traffic lanes and makes you late to stuff. Anyway, this happened 2 days ago and I hope my revenge was petty enough, but here you are. So I had a lane closure that I needed to take off the road. I'm about halfway down when I get a city bus stop with 2 guys and a girl. They asked me if I could give them a ride so they don't have to take the bus. I said, "Sorry guys, I can't, I'm working," and continued to take the lane closure down. The girl stood up and told me, "I effing hate rude ugly Karens." I reply, "Congratulations," and keep doing my job. They keep yelling insults, I ignore them. When I was about 300 feet away, the yelling stops and I see the guys had gotten up and started throwing the barricades in the street into the lane that is now open for traffic to drive in. I run over and take them out of the road and explain to them if they did it again, I would call the cops. Then the girl chimed in and said, "Go ahead, douchebag. It's not our fault you're so stupid you're forgetting to take them all down." I walk away, they do it again. I called the cops and they said that they would be there ASAP. In my experience, that means about an hour. So I walk over and tell them I called the cops, and stand there so they cannot move them again. After about 5 minutes standing there, the boys told the girl that they were going to get a drink from the Circle K the bus stop was in front of. They left and she would not look at anything but her phone. Now I'm annoyed, I still have more work to do and this lane closure is still up and it's approaching rush hour. So I decided, F these kids. I pulled out my pepper spray and I sprayed the handles of the barricades that they kept throwing in the street and walked about 50 feet away and waiting. The boys came out of the store, put their bags down and grabbed a barricade in each and threw them in the street. However, the handles were wet so they only went on the shoulder, so I didn't go to move them immediately. I saw they wiped their hands off on their pants, but because of the bus stop I couldn't see everything. About a minute later one of the boys got up and ran into the Circle K with his hand over his eye and ran in there a second later too. Though nothing seemed to be bothering him. About 10 minutes later when they came out of the store, the cops were just showing up and they both took off sprinting down the street and totally bailed on the girl. I talked to the cops and told them the boys ran off and the girl never touched the barricade, so they were good to go. The girl was crying because her boyfriend left her there. And the next one is a malicious compliance story. It starts like this. My mother was a legal secretary and worked for one of the biggest law firms in my country for over 15 years. At the point of this story, she was about 2 years from retirement. She had noticed a deterioration in her eyesight and was struggling to work on the computer, read, or do most of her day-to-day work. The firm sent her to an affiliated doctor who said she was absolutely fine and can continue working. But as she was struggling, she decided to pay privately for a specialist who immediately told her that she was no longer fit to drive safely, let alone accurately read or use a computer, as she had multiple degenerative eye conditions. The specialist told her to minimize time on a computer to the absolute minimum as it was triggering migraines and other problems. She brought this report to the firm and requested either a change in her job requirements or to go on leave until she was again fit to work. But of course, the firm had their own report. They said she was exaggerating and could absolutely keep working. However, they very kindly told her that she only had to work on the computer 4 days per week from now on. 1 day a week she could just do filing. How generous, so she kept doing her job. But wouldn't you know it, when she was binding files for court, they were just a mess. Filing? Wow, cannot find anything. I know that she disliked several of the lawyers. My mother grew up poor and had to leave school young to work, so being uneducated, she was not always treated with much respect and she was happy enough to deal with their anger. But she was friendly with most, including one particular lawyer who may or may not have mentioned some tips to my mother on how to deal with the problem and what she was entitled to after working there for so many years. So when the higher-ups inevitably called my mother in about the terrible work, she presented quite a compelling case on her rights, safety in the workplace, disability leave, etc. Long story short, she got fully paid medical leave until she retired, back paid for any time she took off for doctor and hospital visits. And the next one is a story about a useless, leeching brother. My brother, 24 male, has been out of work for a while and has been looking to make any extra cash. So I, 27 male, decided to start paying him to walk my dog in the mornings and evening. Not much, but just so he has something. I didn't need him to because I was already doing that myself, but still been busy with work, so at least him doing it meant I wouldn't have to get up super early to walk my dog Bella or take her out really late once I'm done for the day. I did not notice this until a couple of weeks after he started walking Bella, but she has her own pee pad in my apartment where she does her business. Sometimes she will poop during our walks and I clean up after her. When my brother started walking her, I gave him the bags to use in case she went. However, a few days went by and I noticed Bella has not used her pee pad to go number 2 at all. I asked my brother if she is going during their walks and he told me she wasn't. I noticed it too when they would get back and he hasn't used the bags. I asked him a few times if he's sure and he said yeah. So that scared me because obviously there was a problem if she has not pooped in days. I took her to the vet and they did a physical blood work to check if she was dehydrated or anything else. However, literally nothing was wrong. So then the vet suggested we do an abdominal ultrasound to see if they could figure out what was going on. That crap wasn't cheap at all. So still haven't gotten the results yet, and earlier I'm at home, my brother stops by to take her out. Notices how I'm acting, so he asks what is wrong. I told him everything. that I'm freaked out over what's wrong with Bella because they've done these tests and they don't know what's up. Finally, he tells me he's been lying about the whole thing. Bella does go, but he just didn't want to pick up the poop. He did not tell me because he knew I would get mad since they only walk around this block. Which means he's been letting her go on the neighbors' yards and not picking it up. Man, I literally lost it, like actually yelled at him for making me worry about my dog and that I spent so much money for nothing. I essentially fired him and didn't say nothing about him paying me back because knowing him, I knew he won't. My brother begged me to give him a chance and he didn't know it was gonna be a big deal. He texted me multiple times that he is sorry and he really needs this help. Since he is staying at my parents, of course he told them, so now they are on his side too, to be a good brother and give him a chance for making a stupid mistake. My brother is mad that I won't help him. I'm still mad about the whole thing, so I don't know if I'm being too harsh because of my emotions or if I'm in the right here. So yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the a-hole or not? I'm very curious about what you have to say. A user in the comments said, tell him he can have another chance and once he has done enough walks that on what you paid him before, he has paid the vet bill back, he can get paid again. I have the suspicion that he won't agree to this, it will be a lot of unpaid work for him. Comment number 2, not the a-hole at all. Maybe if your parents are feeling so supportive of his laziness, then they can pay you back for the vet bills.
The next one is titled Ice Cold Revenge. About 15 years ago, I worked in a sort of local computer shop. It was not a big chain or anything, it was one of these old school family run places. Kind of charming if you ask me, because they are not so common anymore. The boss had an acquaintance who would come visit him, let's call him Dave. He would be in the back area with all of us along with the stock, CPUs, RAM, hard drives, GPUs, etc. Because we were all friends, stock checking and keeping was very lax, but we trusted one another, so it was not a problem. But suddenly, things were going missing and we could not work out what was going on. We all suspected it was Dave, but could not be sure. Around that time, there was a very popular screensaver doing the rounds. It was a very photorealistic 3D aquarium screensaver by Jim Sachs, and everyone wanted it on their PC. I had it on my work PC, and when Dave saw it, he immediately asked for a copy, to which I refused. He grumbled about it and then left. I then had the idea of catching him out. I fired up Visual Basic and made a quick program called Aquarium Screensaver and compiled it with a standard Windows type setup wizard. The setup looked very legit and I then saved it to a floppy, yes a floppy, and wrote Aquarium Screensaver on the disk. I then put it on the side and left it. The next day when I got to work, the disk was missing. I asked the boss if Dave had been in and he had. Now, as you can imagine, I did not write a screensaver. In fact, I wrote an app to delete all files and folders on any computer that installed it. In the setup terms and conditions, it clearly explains that this is what would happen and the user agrees to this before installing. Later that day, we get a call from Dave asking to speak to me. Dave asked if I had any problems with the screensaver, as his computer would no longer boot. I said no, it was fine for me and to perhaps try it on his other computer. A few days later, one of the other staff told him I had made this program and he stormed into our shop to face off with me, but soon backed off when I reminded him I had not given him the screensaver. So we proved he was happy to steal something and we got petty revenge. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say that's a big life lesson. If you install anything, or actually before signing anything, always read the terms and conditions. Although I would think that if you put in the terms and conditions that you will install a virus with this program, I don't think it would hold up in court.
And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.